We're continuing to read through the Sefer Mareh Yaakov, and as every week, excuse me, we try to perhaps extend the learning that we've got to what might have been written should the commentary have been continued with something that's relevant to Parshat Shiur, to the reading of that particular week. So we just read Acharimot. Acharimot has a division which talks about erva, talks about illicit sexual relations, and specifically the pasuk I wanted to go over is Perek Yudchet Pasuk Kaf, V'yaleshet hamitcha, and to the wife of your friend, Lo titein shchavcha lazara, you shouldn't sleep literally for seed, L'tamava, to make her impure. And specifically the word I wanted to focus on is amitecha, of your friend. Amitecha is written like this, and you'll notice that there is a zakef katon, so there's actually the two full notes on the one word. So what would we think that now? Don't forget, when we get to a katon, what do we think? We think that this is a two-part note, so this is something that's got at least two things about it. So if we've got the full zakef katon on the word, what are we going to think? This is a word that has three implications on it. So we take a look at the Ramban on V'yaleshet hamitcha, and he quotes Gemara, Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Kol hameshagel, anybody who's having illicit sexual relationships, lishlosha chalakim mechalak, divided into three different sections. Echad l'friya l'vriya, the first Ravia, the first to have children from that illicit relation. V'hasheni lahakel milchot haguf, and the second one who just doesn't want to deal with anything. He wants to take it easy on himself from anything that his body wants to do. Sorry, lost my place. And the third reason that people would do something like this is because they have an animal desire. So I don't think we need to go into this in detail, but just to see the word amitecha with a three-part note tells us that there's a three-part answer, and I think that was very relevant and would probably have been something that would have been included should the Sefer have gone that far.
Yeshikah. Thank you.
We are going to continue our learning on Parshat Noach. We are in Perek Zayin, the 7th chapter, the 13th pasuk. We just at the last session discussed the beginning of the flood, and we continue. It's on page 31 in the section on Noach. It says G7/13. The Yetzem, on culmination. So we're with number one there. Yep. Due to the continuous and increasing rainfall in relation to the end of the previous sentence. So we had said in the previous sentence, just to refresh people's memory, that the rains started normally, and then it turned into something that was unnatural and destructive, and so on. So due to the continuous and increasing rainfall, as the previous sentence had told us, on culmination of fear and suffering, Noach made his final decisions, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. This is a pashta, which is very loosely connected to what's before, but tells us that it's going to go forward into what is going to come after. So this is tying us to the next set of words, and by the way, it's giving some emphasis to this word. So we have a side note: the etzem should be considered etymologically, that means having to do with the way the word is made up, to get its proper meaning. It falls under the rule of tzimtzum. So etzem has part of the root of tzimtzum, shrinkage, which is a Kabbalistic term to describe how something infinite can fit into a finite world. God squeezes himself into our reality and gives finiteness by the act of tzimtzum. the act of limiting himself in certain ways, so that we in our finite way cannot consider fully the infinite. So under the rule of Tzimtzum, affecting a drop out in instances of muta cum liquida, change that is fluid, which is the Latin, in be'ad tzam, due to suffering. The Dalet, there's a Dalet, be'ad, so be'ad tzam, due to suffering. The Dalet being followed by the locked tzadi, was exposed to be swallowed and vanished, leaving the form be'etzem. So if you'll notice that the word be'ad tzam, due to suffering, if you take out the dalid from the first word and the tzadi from the second word, then all of a sudden what you're left with is beit ayin. If you take out the dalid from the first word, you have beit ayin tzadi mem be'etzem. So you're saying that this word comes as a synthesis of these two words, if you will, and the fast of Yom Kippur is okay. I think this is a little beyond where we want to go. So it's a little bit esoteric, and I think we're going to leave this for later. Again, we're going to do more Kabbalah when we go back through Breshit, and I'm going to make myself a note to come back to this when we get there, because I think it would consume the entire class. So let's keep on going. So Hayom, of the day, with the Mapach. So Mapach, the note under the Yud, is something that funnels something that comes before and brings it to a focus, to a point. The prevalent conditions of the day, which followed a rainy night, created deep concern to everyone, despite the fact that the people considered Noach a daydreamer and a psychopath due to his predictions, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So, as the day went on, and it became clearer and clearer that there was going to be more and more heavier and heavier rain, people's concerns started to be focused down to a point. They started to realize, well, Noach has been babbling about this flood for 120 years, and he was not believable, but their fears tended to become more and more concentrated as the rain became heavier and heavier. Hazeh, number 3, of this, with the pashta, which will again say is loosely related to what's gone before, but mostly tying into what's going to come afterwards, and slightly flags the word itself. Of this, in view of this situation, everyone found himself to be more tightly surrounded by water, and this had created fear amongst the entire animated world, as stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So what this are we talking about? We're talking about the rain coming heavier and heavier, and people seeing more and more water coming up, and this is focusing their fears and leading them forward into what they're going to do. Ba, he came with a zakef, with a munach, zakef katzon ba Noach. So this is a munach. Munach separates itself out from what's gone before and moves us forward. When Noach observed the environmental conditions, he came close to the ark in preparation for entry, as shown by the shape of the reading mark. So Noach is separating himself out from the rest of the generation. They're all sitting there in fear and having their doubts as to the things that Noah had told them for so long, and they had considered him crazy. And all of a sudden, Noah separates himself out and says, okay, now is the time to be close to the ark, because it's obviously going to happen soon. So he is going to move forward from that point separate from the rest of the generation who are not moving forward. Noach with a katon, and remember katon is a two-part mark. It's got two parts to its shape, often one higher and one lower. Previously, Noach, we're at number 5, was only working on the ark, making the necessary preparations, but he kept some distance from it, as pointed out by the bar-partite shape of the reading mark. So, why do we have to say he ba Noach, he came? He had to come closer because before he wasn't necessarily staying close to the ark. At this point, when the rain and the water is starting to accumulate, Noach feels that he needs to move from where he was before to be closer to the ark, and that's why we have the two-part shape of the mark. Before he was somewhere else, now he's by the ark.
But that point is why?
Because it's a two-part note.
No. Okay, so he was far from the ark. What does it matter? Like, what are they trying to say? He was far.
So now he's moved closer, and this probably, so in order to understand this, we need to understand what Rashi says about the word be'etzem. The word be'etzem that started this pasuk comes in several places in Torah, and whenever we see the word be'etzem, it means the same thing. So this is the first one, when Noach comes to the ark, and Rashi comments that what happened, Noach started to prepare to enter the ark, and the people of the generation stood up against him and said, there's no way you're going to do this. But did he do it in the middle of the night? No, he did it in the middle of the day. Why? For God to show that I say that Noach is going to go into the ark and the flood is going to kill everyone, and there's nothing that you can do to stop it. So it's going to happen in the middle of the day, in broad daylight, with everybody seeing and with everybody powerless to do anything against it, to show that this is divine will. When's the second time that we find Be'etzem? Be'etzem Yom Hazeh, that's when the people of Israel went out of Egypt. Pharaoh and all of Egypt are going to say, we're going to stop you. God is going to say, no, they're not going to slink away in the middle of the night. They're going to go in the middle of the day, and no matter what you say to stop them, they are going to go out. And the last Be'etzem happens with Moses' death. The people of Israel are going to say, you can't take Moses from it. God has said, this is my will, he is going to go today, and despite any protests or anything that people say, happens in the middle of the day, happens be'etzem hayom, it's divine will, and it's going to happen. So now with that understanding of a little bit of the background of what be'etzem means, why do we say Noach came closer to the ark? He came closer to the ark because he realized now is the time. Divine will is going to happen, and he has to be prepared to fulfill it. Now, Ba, with the zakek, with the munach under it, separates Noach out from everybody else. They're going to try to stop him, but he's going to proceed. So with that understanding of what the etzem means, now we understand why Noach has separated himself out, and he's come closer to the ark. That's why there's a significance to it. Because he knows this is divine will, it's going to happen no matter what anybody else wants. So even though that's not in the Sefer, I feel that implication is relevant to this. V'shem v'cham, and Shem and Cham, these are two of Noah's sons, with a mercha. Mercha softly leads into what is going to come after it. So number 6, observing the father and his moves, and Shem and Cham prepared to enter the ark. When Shem made the first move, being mentioned first, he took his younger brother along, as suggested by the directional shape of the reading mark. So Mercha sort of sweeps into what's going to come after it. Mareh Yaakov is basically saying that the order is important, that Shem is taking a leading role here because his name is mentioned first, and he is taking Cham along with it, with him. So this is the Mercha leading into the Tipcha, the Yafet, and Yafet with the Tipcha, which focuses us back to the phrase that's come before it. Having observed his younger brothers, and Yefet joined them, as pictured by the closing shape of the directional reading book. So Yefet completed the circle because he saw completed the act of going towards the ark because the other two brothers had gone. And that's the idea of Tikva, something closing off. B'nai Noach, sons of Noach, within Et Nachta. Et Nachta, we'll remember, is a stabilizing mark. It's got that nice stable base, possibly with something focused upwards to it. The sons of Noach, together with their father, constituted one group and shared common duties and living accommodations in the ark, as expressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark, and by the samich, the little dash that's in between the word B'nai and Noach.
Right.
That's called the samich. So that means the two words are sort of somewhat elided together. There's a direct connection between them. So the comment here is that Noach and his father, Noach's sons and their father shared common goals, common duties, and that's how and their joining together is signified by that samich, by that dash in between the two words. The Eshet and the wife of, with the munach. Sorry?
Mrs. Noach.
Mrs., yes, and the Mrs. I will think back. I know what her name is, and I'll have to give you an answer.
Really? I thought
think
there
there
was
is an
no
answer.
name.
There is
Other
an
than
answer.
maybe Hollywood gave her one.
No, it's
Didn't think there
one
was?
of it's one of Lemech's daughters. I will give you the name
Really?
after I look back. And the wife of number 9. Similarly, the females joined separately, and the wife of Noach was in the lead to prepare for embarkation and occupation of their own living quarters, separate from the men. So again, this is a munach, so remember it's something that separates you out and then leads forward. So the women went separately, but, by the way, the wife of Noach led the way for all the other women who were going with her. And there is, this is interesting that when we're talking only about the wife of Noach, we fold in the concept that she's leading the other women specifically because of the shape of the munach, specifically because it's separating her out from the men. So who else is separated out? The women, all of them, not just her. So he's reading that into the shape of the munach. Noach with the Rivi'i. Rivi'i again is a note that we pause. It makes the word stand alone. Number 10, however, Noach assumed the duties as commander-in-chief of the total ark, and his orders were to be obeyed by all occupants, as specified by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So again, we see that Rivi'i makes the word stand alone, and command is often lonely, so Noach is sitting there at the top, separated a little bit from everybody else, and certainly I don't want to reuse the word commander, but I'll just reuse the word commander, the one who is in charge. Ushloshet, and 3 of, with a dargah. The dargah is a note that leads into the word that's going to come after it, and it again trumpets it, it focuses on it. The additional females were equally subjected to obey Noah's commands, and 3 of his in-laws had to adapt to the general order as illustrated by the shape of the reading mark. So several times with dargah, although he doesn't necessarily mention it in his definition of the note, it seems to imply that there might be something that is going down, a hierarchy, an upper and a lower, like madrigot, like steps. So the 3 daughters similarly have to assume their position in the command structure, if you will, as being subordinate to not only Noach, but also subordinate to Noach's wife. Nishay
Do
Vanav.
they each hold an equal? The three.
It seems
Or would
because
that
they're all.
also be-
It seems because they're all mentioned together that they probably had an equal status. Whereas before Shem v'Cham, the Yefet, we've mentioned them separately. So the first two might have a little bit of different status than the third. And there are advantages to both being the leader and to being the one who has followed the lead. So we'll again discuss later the characteristics of Noah's sons as we learn more about how they act on who they are. Nishay Vanav, wives of his sons. Number 12. They were the wives of his sons who were foreseen to complete their families, as conveyed by the shape of the reading mark. Tavir is a note that has a little dot in the center and a mercha around it. So we'll remember that this is something that is a protected core. So these are the other women who are going to help to populate the world. They are the protected core that is going to continue to go forward from this point on. Itam, with them, with a tipcha. Tipcha is a backwards looking note completing the thought of what had just come before. They had to be included in the ark like their men in order to preserve with them the continuation of life, as demonstrated by the reverse direction of the reading mark. So these three wives, who we had just said were sheltered, come with the men, and the reason that they're sheltered is to complete what each of these pairs are going to accomplish to repopulate the world.
Not only are they sheltered, but with the Tavir, that's actually the new population sheltered within their womb.
Yeah.
That they hold the physical seeds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
I'm thinking on it because the Tavir is actually on Banav, not on Nishay.
But it has the adjoining hyphen,
there's some-
Mm-hmm.
which means that you need both
Mm-hmm.
to populate the earth.
Yeah.
you know, it's very.
Okay.
Good.
El
It's a great-
Hateva, to the box. Number 14, Sof Pasuk. Sof Pasuk is a stabilizing note. After entering to the box, they occupied their compartment together with their mother-in-law. So the question is, where does he derive the fact that all the women went together? So
That you mean the
the-
three women went
So
together?
that's what he says. After entering to the box, they occupied their compartment together with their mother-in-law. So all four women are now in the same part of the ark. Certainly, it's more than 40 days. It's 40 days of rain and another 150 days for the. So the part of the stability of the ark is that there is no further procreation on the ark. You don't want 500,000 rabbits at the end of the period of time. So part of the stability of the ark is that there's no Pri and Reviah. There's no multiplying on the ark. So the stability of coming to the Teva also means a pausing in this procreation, and that's perhaps how we derive from the Sof Pasuk the fact that all the women are sleeping together, not the husbands sleeping with the wives, because that would create the conditions for instability. And we will read the pasuk. V'yetzem hayom hazeh ba Noach v'shem v'cham v'yefet b'nei Noach v'yeshet Noach u'shloshet neshevanav itam el hateva. And again, the concept of the first part being perhaps the more elevated, and the second half perhaps being the more mundane. The first part is a direct recognition of respect for what God has decreed. specifically with that concept of what the etzem means, in light of what Rashi says at least. So they are doing it as a direct relationship to divine command, whereas the wives are coming to complete the tasks of their husbands. It seems they're coming there to be with them. So it's a more earthly, a more corporeal goal
Directive.
that they're goal and directive that they're satisfying. So again, loosely, that's a new concept that we're introducing into the Sefer, but I think it fits well with what we've learned so far. We're going to continue with the next sentence. Hema with an azla geresh. So if we'll remember, there are two notes that go together. Kadma v'azla kadma looks like a pashta, but it's connected to azla, which is a completion of that upper trumpeting sound. Azla geresh is when the azla just comes by itself. So again, this is a major focusing on this word, but because it's shaped that way, it is perhaps looking backwards. It's fulfilling something that's come backwards, but really strongly emphasizing the word. Hema, they, number one. When Noach's family entered the ark in relation with the end of the previous sentence, so again, why do we say in relation with the end of the previous sentence? Because the Azla Geresh looks back at the sentence before, just by its shape. It caused an alarm amongst the rest of the people. Panicking, they screamed and threatened to break it if they saw Noach entering, as indicated by the high trumpet of the reading mark. So we see.
Sorry, how I'm not seeing the actual difference in the mark.
Pashta is forward-looking.
No, there's Azla and Azla Gerish.
They are exactly the same thing. It's just when it stands alone, it gets a new name. Kadma v'azla is the pair. Azla Gerish is that second part of the pair when it's not connected to a kadma.
Oh,
So it is exactly the same shape. There's no difference in it. But again, it's perhaps even more of a focus. And when we read the sentence at the end, you'll hear how it really makes the word stand out. Certainly, this is a tremendous way to say that there is this cacophony of the people of the generation screaming and yelling that what's going to happen, screaming in panic. So this is definitely a high-pitched focusing note, and maybe I'll just read it out loud so you can hear what it is. Hey ma. So you can hear that this is something that is really focusing on the fact that something really big is happening. V'chol hachaya, and all the beast, with a munach. So again, this separates itself out from what's before and leads into what is going to go after it. There was an impending danger for Noach, as well as the ark, and all the beast rushed to surround and protect him from any violent attempts on his life, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark and by the juxtaposition to Hema.
Interesting. What the juxtaposition?
So why does he mention that? Because normally we say that a munach is completely or separating itself out from what has come before. But here he's drawing attention to the juxtaposition.
Perhaps.
But that's never been something that he has done before.
Maybe one on the one side and one on the other side. Hema, v'chol chaya.
So we have the word Hema, which is a homonym, or a rhyming word with behema.
Mm-hmm.
So we're playing on behema and chaya, tamed animal and wilder animal, or any type of animal. But I don't see any other connection that we could draw, given that we are saying that a munach is definitely something that separates itself out from things before. So I would think that because the word hema and behema are close to each other,